Hi, this is Tana at Proverbial Homemaker, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to set homemaking goals. You may be in a place where you are ready to start making some intentional changes in your homemaking. You're ready to have a more peaceful and orderly home for your family, and that is a very worthy thing to pursue. So I encourage you to continue in that vein. But sometimes for some of us, it can be overwhelming. We have tried to make changes before and they just haven't worked out. We have this idea that we are just bad at homemaking. And so the idea of really pursuing changes in our home is just daunting. We look around at the chaos and the clutter and we can't even imagine how we're going to overcome it. And so I just want to encourage you today that it doesn't have to be that way, that there are some tools and techniques that you can use to tackle your homemaking and really help it to be more streamlined and efficient and to have goals that you can really accomplish that just stick and build a foundation for successful homemaking. In our homemaking, we tend to gravitate towards checklists and to-do lists and the decluttering efforts and planners and all those things. And those are great tools, and we will make use of those. But if you are going into a time where you want to make intentional changes in your homemaking and you just feel overwhelmed, I have some suggestions for you on how to do that. I would suggest focusing on two things. The first is prayer, and the second are your routines. And that may seem really basic, but they are foundational to your success, and they are worth pouring into a lot of effort up front until you kind of have them nailed before you move on to other things. As women who follow Christ, we know that prayer is so critical and important. I think sometimes we forget that it's also important in our homemaking. Jesus is the Lord over our homes, He's the Lord over our lives, and He's the Lord over our homemaking efforts and our day-to-day work. So it makes sense just to start there, to really pursue diligent prayer in our lives. And sometimes that can fall by the wayside when we get distracted by other things and other efforts. And we think if we just try harder and do more, and if we're just more, self-disciplined, then we can make this work and we can be Susie Q homemaker. But the reality is that often it doesn't work out that way. And so the best thing we can do is start with diligent prayer and really make it a habit that will last and that will carry us forward. Diligent prayer over our lives and over our homemaking can help us to pursue God's heart and what He wants for our homes and our families, to help move towards a home that is peaceful and orderly and best serves our family and our needs, so that we can be gospel focused in our homes and that we can create an environment from which we can go out into the world and minister to others. So our homemaking efforts are important, and starting with prayer will help us to pursue the things that are most important in our homemaking so that we're not seeking perfection or Pinterest-worthy homes. We are seeking a place that is orderly and clean enough to do the most important things in the kingdom of God. The next thing you're going to want to focus on are your routines. Your routines are critical for your success as a homemaker, and they will function as your foundation so that when your system of homemaking just falls apart because of illness, or you just kind of lose your way and you forget about some things and it just kind of all crumbles, you can stand on those routines and work on those and focus on those and build back up to where you want to be. They are like scripts. They just keep running no matter what. And if you have them sealed so that your routines are something you've practiced so many times that they will stand no matter what's going on around you, then they will really carry you when you need it. So your routines that you want to focus on are like when you go to bed, when you wake up, meal times, and if you have kids, things like school transitions or nap times. Those are the times will always happen. You will always go to bed, hopefully. You will always wake up at some point. So you can anchor activities that you want to really work on to those things that will always happen no matter what. So take the time to evaluate your routines. Take a look at what you're already doing. because we all have routines, even if they aren't the best ones. But take a look at what your routines already are, how you can improve them, what you want them to look like, and start making subtle changes one by one until you get to where you want to be. So, what about homemaking goals then? Well, if you are looking at making some intentional changes in your homemaking and you just don't know where to start, the best thing you can do is to set 2 to 4 homemaking goals that support those two efforts: diligent prayer and your basic routines. Well-defined goals are often described as SMART goals. It's an acronym that's commonly used in many fields. It means specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, and time-bound. It's a way to make goals that are defined enough so that you know exactly what you need to do and that you can accomplish it. You can check off that box. So if you're looking at your priorities of prayer and routines, how can you set SMART goals? So let's say my goal was to set up a system that would support my diligent prayer over my homemaking. My goal would be to accomplish a certain number of steps by a defined date. So let's say by the end of this month, I am going to set up a simple prayer journal that I can write in every morning. I'm going to set the alarm to get up 10 minutes earlier so that I can spend a little bit of time focusing on a memory verse about homemaking, or just jot down some thoughts, or to pray over my plans before I start the day. And perhaps I might add in there, I'm going to find an accountability partner, and I will pray for her and she will pray for me. And so these are 3 simple steps that I can do to support my priority of diligent prayer in my homemaking. So that's one idea. Another one would be for routines. Let's say I've identified a problem area. That's completely fictitious right now, but my problem area is a bedroom that is messy, which it is right now. So one thing I want to work on personally is to tidy up my room every night before I go to bed so that I wake up to a fresh, clean room and I can just start the day without that kind of cluttering my mind. So I'm going to look at my routines and think, where can I anchor this effort to? And one that makes sense for me is bedtime. So before I go to bed, I want to tidy up my room. So how can I make goals a goal that will support me in that effort? So if I'm looking at tackling this particular homemaking challenge and I want to anchor it to an evening routine, what goal can I set to help myself accomplish that effort? One idea would be to say, to define my goal as setting up a system for tidying up the room at night. And my steps could be, and I tend to try to limit things to 5 steps. Otherwise, I feel like my goal is too big and I split it up into sub goals. But for this one's pretty simple. So my first step would be, maybe I notice that we need another hamper on the other side of the room. My husband puts his clothes away, but I always tend to throw mine on the floor. So maybe I need a hamper on my side of the room as well. So number 1 would be getting a new hamper. Number 2, I have too many clothes, so I want to thin out my clothes by half or a third or whatever. Number 3, I want to set a timer. Again, timers are my friend. Set a timer so that I head off to bed 10 minutes earlier, and just for the purpose of tidying up my room before starting the rest of my evening routine. And perhaps I also want to have accountability in this area. So I check in with somebody once an evening or once a week and say how well I did in this effort. So there are ways to set goals that are specific. I want something specific, not just be more tidy and clean. That's not specific. Measurable, where I can check off these 5 very defined steps, and when I'm done with the task and I can mark it off. I want to have a deadline. I want to say I'm going to complete this by the end of the month or whatever my deadline is. And it has to be reasonable and attainable. I don't want to just say, I am going to have Martha Stewart's home, because that's just not going to happen in my season of life and where I am right now with my skill level and my motivation. So these are the things you want to keep in mind when you're creating your goals. So if you'd like to make some intentional changes in your homemaking this year, I encourage you to focus on prayer and your routines. Those 2 things can make all the difference. Come up with solid, smart goals about those two priorities, and you will go a long way this year towards great homemaking achievements. And I also encourage you to join us at Domestically Challenged Divinely Equipped Facebook group, where you can get great accountability and support every day. You can download the Proverbial Homemaker Planner and join the 7-day eCourse that helps you to develop a homemaking system that works for you, for your specific needs and challenges. And I just hope that you are blessed by this and wish you all the best in your homemaking. Thanks for watching.